The Predator, not the movie, the football boots, 1994. First one comes out, and the course of football boot history has changed forever.
Yeah, you can all thanks to former Middlesbrough and Liverpool midfielder Craig Johnston, who won the lot with Liverpool in the 1980s, returned to Australia in retirement, was coaching kids back home, and then came up with this idea about how to improve the football boot as a whole, which is essentially the idea of using rubber instead of leather to get more grip on the ball. And he worked in this prototype, which eventually became the Adidas Predator. Initially, Adidas had no interest in it, but once he got fellow ex-pros interested in wearing a pair of his prototype boots and kicking a ball with them, suddenly Adidas were interested, and lo and behold, 1994, the Adidas Predator debuts.
It's actually one of the nicest boots out of them all. I'm just looking at
the first one,
the sort of evolution of it. It's simple, to the point. What's interesting about this now, and it's something I never really noticed, the new boot that has come out has sort of like a dragon skinish thing going on, and the 1994 one actually has that as well.
Yeah, it was revolutionary at the time, the Adidas Predator, in terms of the aesthetic of it, which is saying something about how mundane boots looked back then, because really you would call them classics now when you're looking at them, because they're all black with the exception of the recognisable Adidas 3 stripes. And since then it's gone on this crazy journey, and now they're kind of trying to go back to basics, 2.5 decades on. But the original boot weighed a ton, an absolute ton. So the biggest thing.
I thought you meant a literal ton there for a while. Then.
The big change beyond the aesthetics of the Predators have actually been the weight, and they're light as a feather now. But they used to be very, very heavy.
Well, here's an interesting point about the first boot. Apparently, it cost more than £100, which in the 90s is an obscene amount of money. So I can't imagine it would have been too popular at the time.
Well, I mean, nobody was talking about boots, about how they could actually genuinely improve the way you played football back then. And the Predator, that was the big marketing ploy on their part. I mean, I think their tagline for the first pair was 100% legal, 0% fair, because it was seen to give you an advantage. And the grip on the front of the boot would help you curl the ball and swerve the ball and get more power. And with each new version of the Predator, that was evolved again and pushed as the front marketing slogan.
Well, that's what they're still doing to this day. If you look at some of the different boots, be it Nike, be it Adidas, especially Adidas, they've sort of honed in on what the boots let you do. So, for example, the F50s are for speed, the Predators are for power.
That's it.
You can go on, there's close control ones or whatever. I don't really believe in any of that.
I think it's a placebo, right? But I always felt that I always associated players who wore Predators, be it at the top level of the game or Sunday League football, with players who weren't particularly fast, or nor did they really want to use speed, but they would be very technical players who would be able to control and pass the ball very well, as opposed to, say, a Nike Vapor player who would be the total opposite.
He'd be the winger.
Yeah.
Well, I always associated a Predator with a centre midfielder.
The player who's in the engine room and who controls the whole thing. Yeah. Like the Predator for me was like a touch of class, and when we were talking about this last week to intro the overall series, you asked me what should we go with first, and without even thinking I said the Predators. And I bought 3 pairs in my football lifetime as well, and one of them is sitting in front of us there.
I inherited more Predators than I actually bought myself. We'll go to the next one that came out the following year. And again, we're seeing this kind of evolution into marketing and the Premier League becoming a whole different ballgame in comparison to other leagues around Europe. This is like the boot kind of encapsulates that. It's becoming a sort of a capitalistic approach to football. And they come out with the Predator Rapier in 1995. The difference in this one, the key difference probably, is the shape and a little bit more going on with colour. It's black.
Very similar to
black again with the white iconic Adidas stripes, but it has a tongue on it this time and a bit of red going through it.
Yeah, the famous tongue introduced. Still a black tongue though, wasn't it, at that stage? The famous red hadn't come in yet for another year. I associate these, right, because I watched this back. Zinedine Zidane's debut for France. He came on and scored twice against Czech Republic. One of them is a now famous goal, if you YouTube it, where he He runs he kind of a Matt Letitia-esque goal where he dribbles past 2 Czech players and puts it in with his left foot. He wore the Rapiers in that game. And like from that point on, you associate the Predators with Zinedine Zidane and David Beckham. And actually in the 25th anniversary package release that they had last year,
that's the two
boys actually designed. Well, the marketing was that they did design the new look Predator. If they did or not is another thing. But
well, Ronaldo and Messi apparently designed their own bits as well. Where they found the time to do that, I don't know. Quickly moving on to the 1996, because we're starting to get further into the design.
Yeah, the more recognisable one.
It's kind of shaping into the ones that we recognise. 1996, they come out with the Predator Touch. And this is the one where probably most people would remember David Beckham wearing them for United when he was breaking through as a sort of a star. Again, the shape is changing. The tongue, like you said, is red now instead of black. And the 3 stripes have kind of changed. It's sort of, when you go through the changing in the boots, you're kind of looking at the change in Adidas and how they're using their logo and changing their logo to shape the boot.
This is the first iteration for me, the Predator, that is instantly recognisable for a generation of football fans, and it's down to the red tongue alone. And of course, this is the boot worn by David Beckham in the halfway line goal against Wimbledon, and I mean that launched him into very promising young player, into superstar, and then he became a global superstar a couple of years later for all the wrong reasons. He owned these boots really after that moment against Wimbledon, and I actually remember going to the shop with my best friend when I was younger, and he bought a pair of the Predator Touch boots. Bear in mind, we were like single-digit age at this stage, but his parents shelved out the money for it, and he bought these. You'd only be playing like 5 or 6 aside at that age group, but he desperately wanted them, all because of that David Beckham goal, and it was linked with the classiness of the Predator as a result.
How big a role do the players play in the growth of a boot, do you think?
I mean, just what I was saying there, like the Beckham, you like. Kids are not they're not going to be interested in the look of a boot unless they're endorsed, either officially or unofficially, by players they admire growing up. And when you're talking about Predators, you were talking about, generally speaking, the players that were the best on the ball in their own team, more often than not, at some point in their career, would either be endorsed by Predator or they would wear a pair of Predators at some stage. It was always kind of midfield and above would wear the Preds. Don't remember an awful lot of centre-backs wearing them. The odd full-back, maybe. But very much like a player who was very comfortable on the ball, and then to go on from that, a player that would make things happen and create the original number 10.
The free kick takers, the ones who actually I was going to describe it as the number 10s before the number 10 became a thing, because I know in Ireland 4-4-2 was a big thing right up until now. 1998 we see probably my favourite Predator.
The Accelerator.
Predator Accelerator. And it's probably the closest thing to the modern day Predator going through the years. It's changed the shape again. It's more straight. We see the introduction of blades for the first time.
Yeah.
The white stripes are much bigger on this boot. Mm-hmm. And you've got a kind of a red zigzag going through the middle as well. These are ones that I would associate with Zidane in the 98 World Cup.
You have the asymmetrical lacing as well, which was the big setting point that year. So that means you could get more boot on the ball, so the laces would interfere less. That was the whole idea with it. And then you have the flap-down tongue as well.
The flap-down tongue is a massive thing for the Predator going through the next few bits. Yeah. But I remember when blades became a thing and people were petrified of them, even though they're much more safe
with the tackles, wasn't it?
With the tackles. They thought, if you go in with your blades showing up, you're going to slice the lad's leg open, as opposed to leaving a massive dent in a man's leg with a stud. Even though, like, most blades, I know back then they were probably made out of steel at the start, but now they're made out of plastic. They're not doing that much damage compared to a steel stud. But yeah, Zidane at the 98 World Cup, that's where this worked.
They were still very heavy then. I think that the Accelerators weighed like 331 grams. They were still really heavy. I mean, the boots didn't become light until the mid-2000s. But they, like, aesthetically, again, those Accelerators are probably my favourite to look at, but not my favourite Adidas Predator. I'll go on to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then 2000 comes along. We've got the Precision, and these names are brilliant because they're such a great marketing tool for this. Precision, Accelerator. They're starting to add a little bit to these boots all the time.
I mean, the Predator really was just an exercise of brilliant marketing over anything. I mean, essentially they're a football boot, but they're reflected on so warmly. Like there's the Adidas Predator has an amazing ability to be warmly nostalgic for people who used to wear them, and still the cutting edge of modern football boot all in one.
Yeah.
I actually did not like the Precisions. I never liked the look of them.
To be honest, I don't really like them either.
Yeah, I didn't like the fact that the stripes went all the way to the back. I actually thought it made them look a bit tacky.
Well, they look a bit plasticky. If anybody remembers the Precision in comparison to the other boots, they've kind of changed the shape, a little bit more curve going on in the toe. But like Colm is saying here, the main feature of these is the Adidas stripe is they kind of thin out at the end.
Yeah,
and
they're too prominent or something.
But the bottom for these, for me, don't work because you've got a cream base with red blades.
I just didn't really like the original pair. I didn't mind the white pair that David Beckham wore when scoring the free kick for England against Greece at Old Trafford. I like the look of them. But again, I'm associating that because it's Beckham and his precision free kicks. But I was never mad about the original pair. Because I remember Steven Gerrard destroying Man United at Anfield in a game, I think it was the 2000-2001 season, and he scored a screamer from outside the box, like 25 yards, top left corner. And I associate the original looking pair of those iteration of the Predators with Steven Gerrard and that match particularly. So maybe that's another memory that I don't like.
Really, though, we're just wasting time here because
you know what's next.
I know what's next, and I've been sort of just filibustering until we got to this because this is your favourite pair.
Yeah.
It's my favourite pair. I think it's everybody's favourite pair of Predators. The Predator Mania 2002. What a pair of boots.
Well, first of all, they were more practical than the Accelerator because the Accelerator had the flap-down tongue that you could stick on. Sorry, the Precision did. The Precision in 2000 had the flap-down tongue that was kept in by Velcro.
Yeah,
but anytime the weather was in any way bad, the Velcro would come off and therefore the tongue would be flapping around everywhere. Where the Mania, the first great thing that the Mania did was the elastic band for you to be able to wrap it around the boot, down into the sole, and keep it in there. But besides all that, just from a sheer superficial perspective, they looked unbelievable.
Yeah.
And all versions of them too, all colours.
White version, probably my favourite. The white and red ones.
As I said to you
the
last
red
week.
and white ones I had.
You did?
I had the red and white ones. I got them from my cousin, hand me down, but they were beautiful pair of boots. The white ones I loved because of David Beckham and the 2002 World Cup. But I suppose many people would remember these boots from Zidane's volley in the Champions League final.
Leverkusen, yeah. 2002.
For radio listeners, if you don't remember the Predator Mania, they are black with the Adidas stripes coming down at the side as usual, but they had this new thing where they did a swooping Adidas symbol on the toe, which is just, it's brilliant.
They were inspired by the Asian culture ahead of the World Cup in 2002 in Korea and Japan, the design of them. They just kind of went downhill from there, the Predators, and they were a victim of their own brilliance because of how great they were. And when David Beckham moved to Real Madrid in 2003, that was the second season of the Manias. He wore gunshot metal for Real Madrid, so he's the first player to wear that shiny grey look of those Manias, because before that it was the white, silver are the originals.
Did I dream that he wore a pair that had a dragon on the side?
He did eventually, but that was the
white and gold version.
That was a few years later.
It wasn't the Manias?
No, I don't think it was the Manias, no.
See, I assumed that was something to do with the Japan World Cup.
No, he just wore the cream ones that you were talking about there. I mean, like I said to you last week, that's still my biggest regret in life, that I went for those F50s ahead of the Manias. I had the original Manias, but I never had the white and cream ones, which is what I really wanted.
The F50s, we'll get to those because they're a great boot, and I won't have a bad word said about them going through the years.
Just less
as you said, the Predator boot kind of goes downhill from the Manias. So we'll skip through. I'm going to skip through 04 because they're
No, they weren't bad. The Pulse.
They were fine.
They're okay.
Predator Pulse were fine. They were sort of a lesser version of the Mania.
I didn't like the instep. They changed the instep too much to make it red instead of white stripes.
Yeah,
I don't think that did any favours.
The one thing that I do like about the Pulse is the Adidas sign on the side of the boot. It's kind of on the instep.
Oh, you did. Oh, that's the one thing the Manias probably could have done better with. Yeah, that's true.
So that was a nice part. But I'm going to focus on the Predator Absolutes. They came out in 2006, and to be fair, outside of the Mania and outside of the Accelerator, the 06 Predator Absolute was probably my favourite boot, mainly because 2006 I would have been 11.
Jesus.
11, was I 11 in 2006? Yeah, around 11, 12. So I was coming into my biggest phase of football, playing football. I'm ashamed to say I love the fact that Steven Gerrard wore these. I'm pretty sure he wore them they debuted in the Champions League final in 2005, the year before. As far as I know, I could be wrong on that, but he definitely wore them in the 06 season. And I definitely associate these with centre midfielders.
Juan Román Riquelme of Villarreal and Argentina fame wore the gold version of them. And Villarreal really should have got to the Champions League
The white and
final.
gold versions?
There was a white and gold version, but he actually wore the gold, the prominent gold with the black.
Yes.
And Villarreal really should have got to the Champions League final in 2006. He had a penalty against Arsenal in the second leg of that semi-final, which he totally bottled. And Arsenal went on, of course, to the final to lose to Barcelona. And then that summer, Riquelme had that brilliant World Cup with Argentina. And again, it's going back to associating the player with the boot.
Yeah.
And therefore, I love the boot because of the player. Didn't actually like the look of the...
they're fairly ugly.
Absolutes that
to
much.
Be honest,
I wasn't mad about the Absolutes.
To be honest, now that I look back at them, they're fairly ugly.
Great,
but it is the fact that I just associate them with just great midfielders.
Kaka as well.
Yeah. For radio listeners, the Absolutes are the ones that a lot more red coming into the boot at the heel, and the Adidas symbol kind of goes back to the original swerve going forward, and they also have the red going through the tongue. That's the last good Predator for me. The 08 one.
Swerve were okay in 2008.
Yeah, the swerve kind of tried to go back to what the Manias were.
You can never go back though.
It's sort of a mix between the Manias and the Pulse, so it's a lesser version for me. Going through the rest of them, so 2010 the Predator X, I think is that a newer version.
That's
of
a
the
newer
Predator
version.
X.
I had a very similar version. They're Conor Murray's boots that he wore against New Zealand
White
in
and gold
2017.
ones. They're actually very nice boots, to be fair.
Actual Conor Murray's boots.
Yeah.
I had a similar pair to them. Good boot to wear. Very comfortable.
See, I'm not having this at all because the Predator X, they try to change the colour scheme. It's a black and yellow version. And black and yellow, don't get me wrong, they work well together. But Predator is black and red.
You're missing the biggest problem with them. They got rid of the tongue.
They did get rid of the tongue.
That's when they went downhill. Was the last tongue was Power Swerve 2008? Is that right? And then Predator X in 2009-10 got rid of the tongue.
Yeah, that's a fair point, I'd say, because the
tongue is the key to the Predator.
They haven't had a tongue since, and they still don't in the new versions. They have this sock. 2014, they're the worst version for me. Let me just get the name of it now.
The Instinct.
Predator LZ.
No, LZ is 2012, which is what I have in front of me here. Now, I showed you these before we started recording in the office, and you had a kind of underwhelming Christmas morning reaction of I'm not mad about them. I absolutely love these boots, but even though they literally say Predator on the back in the heel,
they're not real.
I don't. No, they are real.
Are they?
I don't associate them with the Adidas Predator at all because
they don't look like Predators.
They don't look anything like them.
Why are they blue?
They went for blue because that's what was happening in the middle of the last decade. Players stopped wearing black boots. They're going back to wearing black boots now. Everybody had colourful boots. These, right? I came back from Australia. I joined the local football team, Satellite Taxis FC, who despite the name are absolutely brilliant team. They have a cup final coming up. And I wore these. They served me very well. Scored 2 lobs in my first 3 games, and I put it down to these lethal zone grips here, which is the whole selling point of these Predators. Again, a complete placebo effect. But if it adds that 3, 4, 5% to your game, I'm all about it.
I don't think they do. So I think actually the bit that I'm referring to is the.
Are you on about
the Instinct? Is it?
The Instinct is 2014, and 2014. You might be on about Addy Power in 2011, which was worn by Robin van Persie at Arsenal, Nani at Man United. Really complete, didn't have any association with the Predator, and they were still in the Predator line.
Whatever. These ones.
You have it. That's Instinct.
Whatever. That's the Instinct.
Yeah, Instinct. Mesut Ozil generation.
For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, and they don't because I'm looking at a photo, this boot is not a Predator. It is a white and black checkered boot with an orange Adidas symbol on it. It's not a Predator. It looks nothing like a Predator. It's an ugly boot, and it doesn't even deserve to be talked about. It just deserves a little bit of my anger. I just want the Predator to go back to what it is. We just want football to go back to what it was.
No. This, is like people hankering, clamouring for Oasis to reunite. Noel and Liam, right? You and I would be big Oasis fans, big Liam and Noel fans. I'm completely against them reuniting. I was completely against the Stone Roses reuniting, and they did a few years ago.
Yeah,
but it's good for a night. And then
it was brilliant. I went to their concert. It was phenomenal.
I did too.
I never thought I would get to see the Stone Roses.
I went to the Mary Park and they were terrible. But you can't recreate that magic. You can't recreate the energy. And with the Adidas Predator, they basically redid the brilliant boots of the Accelerator and the Mania for the 25th anniversary, and they didn't look as good because they tried to modernise the sole.
But you know why they flopped as well? Because it was €160 to buy them. You can't price people out of the market. Only a select few people are going to spend €160 on a pair of boots.
I think a lot of people would spend €160 on a pair of boots. If you're playing for a football team, you're training twice a week and you're playing at the weekend, that's 3 times you're going to wear them in 7 days.
I stopped justifying spending a lot of money on boots.
But the last time I bought football boots was the ones right in front of us now, which was back in 2014. Mm-hmm. So, because I don't need to wear them as much anymore, but they're actually still going strong. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the LZs. They can't, but overall, you can't recreate the magic of the Predator because the best case scenario is that, those boots are lovely. They remind me of the Predator Manias in 2002 or the Predator Accelerators in 1998 and to a lesser extent the Predator Precision in 2000. But you're never going to have a cohort of football fans and football players saying these are the best Adidas Predators ever because people have such a close affiliation and affinity with the original series of the Predators.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to go beyond that. And again, I was talking to a couple of lads from home about this segment that we're going to do, and they're so nostalgic for the Adidas Predator. And they just sent me several pictures of their own version of the Predators that they bought, and it ranges from 1998 through to 2006, and it's all those boots that we mentioned at the top of this line. So they basically had the equivalent of their first 3 albums were great, and they went downhill from there. Very similar to Oasis. The Oasis and Predators align in everything.
Yeah, so 90s nostalgia just is, it's the peak era
for... talking about, really.
Yeah, it's all it is. It's what we focus on in the show all the time.
I don't think you're a big Predator player.
You don't?
I wouldn't think so.
I didn't really wear Predators that often.
Having never seen you play, but I heard you performed well in the Media 6-side tournament.
I did all right.
Yeah.
I didn't do good enough, though, because we got knocked out in the quarter-final.
When an Irish person says I did all right, it means I did very well. I don't have you down as... I have you down, right, before you tell me. I'd say you're a total 90s player.
I did have a pair of total 90s. I had the pair that everyone had, the Wayne Rooney ones, the white ones with the red cube that were absolutely just completely disgusting boots.
Yeah.
But they were iconic.
That Euro 2004 or World Cup 2006, around that era, was it? Or was it a bit later?
It was 2006 because at the time it was like peak Ronaldinho. Because he was, they did the Total 90 ads. It was probably around 05 because it was around the time where the Total 90 ball came into play, the Premier League ball with the white one with the blue stripes going through the middle, best ball in the Premier League. Are we going to do a spin-off of the best balls in the Premier League? We might do that.
Yeah.
After we get through the football bits. Yeah. Next week, I've decided we're going to be doing the F50s, because
Unbelievable.
I was looking through the history of that, and there's some class bits in there. Dahi Boland deserves a nice shout out on the show. He sent me a picture of roughly around 18 boots, around 18, with a paragraph each beside them. And I didn't peg him as a football boots man at all. And he has had pretty much any boot that you want to have. He sent me a photo of, and he still has them for some reason.
You came over and showed them to me in the office, and you showed me these series of pictures with captions to go with all of them. And then I saw the name at the top of the WhatsApp, and it was Dahi Boland, and I was like, Dahi Boland, the hurling fanatic.
Yeah,
and I was
exactly.
like, don't associate this with hurlers. But I talked to him about it the other day, and he said that he played all sorts of sports, so that's what he was wearing. I think his total 90s he wore for hurling, actually, a lot. I suppose you get away with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know what the thing is in hurling with football boots, what the opinion of it is. I know that in Gaelic football, that it's frowned upon to wear anything other than black.
Yeah, that's
because
you have to express yourself in some way.
You are getting sledged if you're wearing white boots, and you better hope that you are a nippy little white.
Can I ask you one question before we finish up?
Forward.
Is it fair to say that the Predator Mania is the best looking football boot of all time?
Absolutely. Hands down, no question asked. There are some really, really good boots out there, but that's my favourite.
It's just it's a cracker.